I never imagined that settling into Maple Grove would become a fight for Sir VY Val against the most infamous HOA president in the area, but there I was, staring down Linda Harper, a woman who seemed to live and breathe the 16-page rulebook she gripped as if it were sacred scripture. When my family and I moved in 6 months ago, the welcome basket from the Homeowners Association had more regulations than treats. A note tucked inside chirped, "Just a friendly reminder to review our community guidelines." Those guidelines turned out to be an exhaustive list of restrictions, dictating everything from where to place trash cans to the precise hues of tan allowed for house exteriors. Still, the neighborhood was stunning, the schools were top-notch, and we figured we could handle the rules. The trouble started when I decided to replace our weathered fence. I filled out all the required forms, waited the mandatory 30 days for approval, and even showed Linda the materials I picked. "This looks acceptable," she'd said, her lips curling into a smile that never touched her eyes. "Just ensure it matches your application exactly." I promised it would and got to work the next weekend. 3 days into the project, I was measuring a section when a shadow loomed over me. There stood Linda in her usual uniform, crisp khaki pants, and a polo shirt with the HOA logo stitched on the pocket. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with fake politeness that instantly set me on edge. "We need to discuss this fence. It's 6 inches taller than what was approved." I stood up slowly, taking a deep breath. "Actually, Linda, it's exactly the height in the application, 4 feet. I've got the approved paperwork inside if you'd like to see it again." Her smile flickered briefly before snapping back into place. "Well, the board has concerns," she pressed on, ignoring my response. "Multiple neighbors have complained it obstructs their view of the common area." I glanced around at the nearby houses, none of which could see the common area from their lots due to our cul-de-sac's layout. This was blatant harassment, but I kept my cool. "I'd be glad to address any official concerns at the next HOA meeting," I said evenly. "But for now, I'll stick with the approved plan." Linda's cheeks flushed as she realized I wouldn't back down. She muttered something about further review and stormed off, phone in hand, likely rallying her allies. What I didn't mention to Linda was that, after our first clash over the shade of our mailbox when we moved in, I'd installed a full security system. For high-definition cameras covered every inch of our property with footage backed up to the cloud. Call it paranoia, but 15 years in corporate litigation had taught me the power of EVI Denke. The next week brought a flurry of petty citations, first a notice about my son's basketball hoop being too visible from the street, then a warning about leaving the garage door open excessively while I worked on my car. Each time I fired back with polite, precise email citing the exact rules allowing my actions, always CCing the whole board. Linda's replies grew sharper with every exchange. The situation exploded on a quiet Saturday afternoon in early summer. My wife and kids were off citing her parents, and I was savoring the peace while tending to the backyard garden. A loud throat clearing spun me around. Linda stood at my property line, arms crossed, flanked by 2 uneasy board members. "We need to address your ongoing violations," she declared, her voice carrying like she was performing for an invisible crowd. "The board has voted to issue a final warning before we proceed with fines and possible legal action." I peeled off my gardening gloves slowly, reining in my rising frustration. "What violations exactly?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. One board member, Tom, I think, shifted awkwardly and avoided my gaze. Linda whipped out a folder from her oversized bag and rattled off charges like a courtroom lawyer. Unauthorized landscaping changes, improper fence height, unapproved exterior fixtures, and causing a disturbance with power tools during restricted hours. She snapped the folder shut with a dramatic flourish. "We have photographic proof of everything." I couldn't suppress a small smile, which clearly threw her off. "Linda, I've documented every change with proper approvals. The landscaping was greenlit in March, the fence matches the application, the security lights comply with guidelines, and I've never used power tools outside the allowed hours 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Weekdays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Weekends." Her eyes narrowed into slits. "Are you saying I'm lying?" she hissed, stepping closer. The other board members swapped nervous looks, obviously regretting their presence. "I personally measured that fence and it's at least 6 inches over code." "I'm just stating facts," I replied calmly, "and I've got documentation for every one. Now if you'll excuse me, I'd like to finish gardening." I turned away, dismissing them as courteously as possible. Then I heard the rustle of her jacket and a sharp metallic click. You think you're so clever, don't you? Linda's voice dropped to a menacing whisper. You and your perfect little family with your perfect house, thinking you can flout the rules everyone else follows. I turned slowly, my stomach dropping as I saw the small handgun in her hand, aimed straight at me. Tom gasped, Linda, what are you doing? And stumbled back. The other board member, a woman whose name escaped me, was already retreating down the driveway, fumbling with her phone. Linda didn't flinch, her focus locked on me. I've poured too much into this community to let people like you ruin it, she said, her voice trembling but the gun steady. Always finding loopholes, always pushing limits. Not anymore. Time slowed as I weighed my options. The fence between us offered some cover, but any sudden move could set her off. Linda, I said, forcing calm into my voice, put the gun down. We can sort out any HOA issues without this. Shut up, she snapped, her composure shattering. Just shut up and listen. I want that fence gone, those lights removed, and you following the rules or I'll make you regret moving into Maple Grove. I knew the camera under the eaves was capturing everything. Linda, think about what you're doing, I urged, raising my hand slowly. This isn't worth ruining your life. Put it down, and we can act like this never happened. For a second, I thought she might waver. Her eyes flicked around, maybe realizing her allies had bailed, leaving her alone in this madness. But then her jaw tightened. No, she said with eerie resolve. I'm done with notices and meetings that go nowhere. Sometimes you have to show people consequences. Before she could act, police sirens pierced the air. Linda's head jerked toward the street, confusion overtaking her fury. Who called? She started, but a bullhorn cut her off. This is the police. Drop your weapon and raise your hands. The order bounced off the cul-de-sac's homes as neighbors peeked out cautiously. Linda's face paled as reality hit. The gun trembled in her grip, and for a heartbeat, I feared she'd do something reckless. This isn't fair, she whispered almost to herself. I was just enforcing the rules. Linda, please, I said urgently, don't make this worse. Think about what's ahead. Something in my plea broke through. Her shoulders slumped, the gun dropped to her side, and within seconds, 3 officers stormed the yard, disarming and cuffing her. As they hauled her away, she muttered weakly that I was the real violator, that she was protecting property values. An officer asked if I pressed charges. Absolutely, I said, nodding to the camera. And I've got the whole thing on video. The next few weeks were a blur of police interviews, EVY Denke submissions, and neighborhood gossip. Linda faced charges of aggravated assault, brandishing a firearm, and criminal threats. At her first court appearance, the poised HOA tyrant was gone, replaced by a defeated figure in an orange jumpsuit. At an emergency HOA meeting, I played the full footage. The collective gasps as Linda drew the gun over a fence spat confirmed her fate. The interim president announced her unanimous removal from the board and a lifetime ban from serving. Community justice felt sweet. The judge later denied her bail, labeling her a danger to the neighborhood. As she was led from the courtroom, our eyes met briefly. When her lawyer whispered her mounting legal fees and potential civil damages, Linda Harper finally had nothing left to say.